no turning back. We have our ancestors with us. We're going to continue to dance with them. Dreaming them. Calling them. Seeing them. We are becoming what we were.
It is part of that Mayan prophecies.
7 triangles of light.
Keep walking. You are the spirit of Unaku. Keep walking. We the human, we are doing the spirit of Unaku.
People who say that the gods made them from corn. They planned their lives according to the heavens. Well versed in astronomy, using a sophisticated mathematics, they calculated the movements of the night sky thousands of years into the past and thousands of years into the future. They knew that the universe moved in cycles. Their lives were ruled by the rhythms of the natural world. Planting and harvesting, birth and death, just as the great tree of life emerges from the earth.
Always, they're connected. Science and religion.
In dreams, we learn from the Maya gods when to plant and when to harvest, when to set the fire, and when to do the corn ceremony.
What we're digging up, what we're coming up with is part of our history. And the men that lived here are some of the greatest men we've ever had. And it's a fact that we're getting to know more and more and more about the life of these people.
They still maintain their customs. They still maintain their ways of organizing their societies. And it's very exciting to see how much of the ancient Maya way of life is still alive as well.
Because American history does not begin in 1492 with Columbus. It begins in 200 BC with the first Maya king who wrote his name on a stone. What is happening now is the people who made these places, people like Yashpak or Bird Jaguar or Pakal, are getting back their voices. They are becoming real to us and speaking to the people of the 20th century about who built this place and why and what they felt and what they thought about the world. These are not anonymous people anymore.
You are the spirit of Unaku. Keep walking. We the human, we are doing the spirit of Unaku.
Oh, yo. Hey, community. LA natives, once again. Sunday.
LA natives.
And today we are again missing my partner, Jennifer. We miss you. We know you're busy and we know you have a lot of things to take care of because you're not only a mother, but you are a birth worker. And I just wanted to acknowledge that she's not here today, but we got Armando. What's up, bro? How you been?
Man, it's been a very productive week, a very exciting week, especially for LA natives. We just joined forces and became media outlets for the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards.
That's dope. The one we announced last week, right?
Yes,
absolutely. So I love how other natives from other regions and other countries and other fake borders, made up borders, are reaching out to our community here at the LA Natives headquarters here in downtown Los Angeles. And, we appreciate anybody who includes our humble little podcast here. And yeah, thanks a lot.
It just goes to show how the indigenous hip hop community definitely sticks together. It's such an important event, in my opinion, because it's the first annual, right, Zero? And the first thing that came across my head was like, yo, how come this hasn't existed before? Right, Zero?
Well, I mean, I think people get into pop culture and they start seeing the same faces over and over again in terms of race, you know? And so the indigenous person comes with the story of like, you know, we took your land, we took everything from you. So they don't want to be seen on popular, you know, things like movies, music, and all that stuff. So everyone's been neglected in that area. And here comes this humble podcast and this humble festival, Indigenous Hip Hop Awards. And here you go. Now we're going to try to mimic what big award shows do.
Right. And what's special about this episode today that we actually have an artist that's been nominated in three categories.
Wow.
And at this festival, and that means so much. His name is David Strickland out of Canada.
Absolutely, David. Yeah, I heard some of his tracks. They're pretty impressive. Professionally, the way they sound, you could tell somebody, you know, took some time to really master the frequencies in songs. And the more professional you make a song sound, the better chance you have for people to like it and be used in movies and shit.
Yeah, and like I was talking to you before the segment started, I was like, yo, like for me, I'm a big hip hop fan, right? Mm-hmm. He's a true OG in the game.
Nice. Yeah, I like talking to individuals that have been in the music industry for more than, you know, 10 years, because then after 10 years, then you really know you're going to do this forever, because by then you would have spent thousands of dollars promoting yourself.
Like for yourself, I consider you a true OG. Like, how do you like that label?
I like it in the sense that, you know, I was productive in my youth and I made an impact that still lasts today. So maybe not like, you know, the pop culture people that get $5 million to promote their record, but I knew that when we did Jaguar Prophecies, Evolution, Black and Red, that we were going to be remembered for that, because it was really humble. There was a humble message behind that, and it wasn't to throw bad vibes at anybody. It was more to recognize the wisdom and the guidance that our elders put together thousands and thousands of years ago. So take it as you want. The archives are there. The music is there. It'll forever be there. So, you know, if you haven't heard it, LA Natives, if you haven't heard all of my catalog, you should go look it up, because it's a very impressive art piece dedicated to the awakening of indigenous consciousness.
Now, I just want to, you know, humbly remind everyone that's tuning in live and that's going to watch this in the archives to subscribe to our YouTube channel, hit that notification bell, and hit that like button. That's going to help us get kicked up in the algorithm. We're almost at 100 subscribers. Thank you for the 80 that we have so far on YouTube, and thank you for the plus 100 now on Twitch, right, Zero?
Yeah, I mean, faster than I thought, you know, and that just goes to show you that there's an amazing community out there that deserves this type of respect, this type of I guess press, and let's just keep doing it. Keep subscribing. Tell your friends, tell your mom, tell your dad. We're friendly in every single show that we try to do. We try to be family friendly, but you know, when you've suffered the recovery of genocide, there's going to be a lot of emotion in that. There's going to be some anger. There's going to be some hypocrisy in that, because we're all trying to find our way out of this colonial mess. Because obviously you cannot perpetuate lies forever and ever. I mean, Peter Tosh said it the best. You can fool some people sometime, but you can't fool people all the time. It's just like you're arrogant at that point. So putting out conscious music with indigenous messages, having LA Natives straight out of downtown Los Angeles, being able to promote people from Quebec like Mr. David Strickland. It's an honor to have him and to be able to hear his voice. Yo, my brother David. How you doing?
Peace. How y'all doing?
Pretty good, family.
Yo, can you hear us?
I can hear you loud and direct.
All right, cool, man.
Perfect.
Hey, it's a super honor and pleasure to have you on LA Natives, man. As soon as we reached out and you replied back, I was shocked, bro, because you're definitely a true OG in not just the indigenous hip hop side, but just in hip hop period, especially out there in Canada, man.
Well, thanks for having me. Yeah, business as usual. Hip hop is hip hop.
Yes, sir.
You know
Yes,
what I
sir.
mean? So, I've been doing it most of my life. So, I'm pretty open to spreading the message anytime. So it's a pleasure.
Absolutely. So talk about like your road. Like, where did you start off, and was the message always, about indigenous consciousness, or?
No, I started off actually breaking. I grew up in the city, in Toronto and in New York, back and forth. And for the most part, I started out b-boying first. I discovered hip hop probably in the late 70s, early 80s, and I really took to the dancing, but I didn't really grow up with the culture, so I didn't realize at the time that the dancing was in my DNA, because my discovery of who I was and being an indigenous person didn't come later in life. Growing up in the city, not really knowing, both my parents are mixed with like, European descents and indigenous descents, from Turtle Island. So, not knowing that till later in life, really, if you look to the guest editorial I did on DJ Booth back almost a year ago, I talk about being assimilation and being assimilated, how like my father was assimilated, and how kind of hip hop freed me from that assimilation, because that like Ernie or Brother Ernie shows us how they're kind of the same thing, our culture and hip hop being the same, right? And it kind of like explained a lot to me how I took to the culture. So I kind of like came up as a b-boy, then I started DJing, and then around the time when my voice changed, I was DJing for a rapper. One of my friends was an MC, and then I knew all his rhymes, so I started rhyming. And then from the rhyming, I got more into production. One of my friends had a record deal. He was one of the first MCs in the city, and he was taught by Scott LaRock how to use the SP1200, and he would lend me that. And that's how I got into like learning how to use the SP. And I really took to like the production, and I didn't even know what a studio was yet. So I started going to studios, and then that's when I figured out what an engineer was. And then it was like a snowball effect. Next thing you know, I was trying to learn how to engineer and produce, and I kind of put the MCing on the side for a while, right? And started doing records in the city, going to New York, meeting people back and forth, and really coming up on the engineering side. And it wasn't until like the last 10, 15 years I started concentrating more on producing, because I was around it and around such legendary producers, like the Def Squad, and the list of people I got to be. As an engineer, it gave me the opportunity to be around a lot of professionals in hip hop, right? Which was really inspiring, and kept me, honing my craft, because I used to keep that kind of tight. I didn't show my beats off too much. I knew my place as an engineer, but now I'm on a different flex. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I remember during that time where you're a young artist, and I know what it's like to be a producer and have a certain sound, and to be like, oh wow, I want to hoard this sound, because
and also sometimes you're just developing. For me, I was developing. Exactly. Like I wasn't as good back then. Now I'm like, I made a beat last night in 10 minutes that blew my mind. I was like, did it just happen? Like, am I getting that good? But it's a vibe thing, really. And I see you got what do you got there? Is that I pulled this out because what do you got there? Is that an owl? The feathers? I pulled this out because this hawk came the other day.
No, we have a hawk wing.
Yeah, this is a hawk wing that came to me the other day. So when I seen that, now this hawk, it's not the full wing like you got, but he was hurt. He was killed. So I rescued parts of him. But so when I seen that, I was wondering if that was a hawk or an owl. So I pulled this out. I was just sitting over there.
Usually the owl medicine, at least from where we were taught, was like woman medicine. So my wife or my partner that sometimes does the podcast with me, she carries that medicine. And I found this adult hawk. It was gifted to me, I guess. I just, was driving down the road and I saw it and I was like, that has to be a predator bird. So I got off and it was an adult hawk, and I kept it and prayed with it for 10 years.
Wow.
then I finally, then I felt like it was like communicating, saying, this medicine was to be shared.
Well, that's kind of what happened to me. I was driving and I seen this. He got hurt. He got killed, and this wing just came up, and I seen it, and it was telling me to come. Kind of like what you were just saying.
Yeah,
that's why I had to ask you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing your medicine with us, because that's what we're trying to do here in LA Natives. When you survive genocide and you don't have those elders to pass it down generation after generation or explain it, I mean, I truly believe the people that are awake right now are those warriors that remember innately. And so these gifts come from the unknown, from the world, the random world of
right. Some of us have already been here before.
Absolutely. And I feel like when I hear your lyrics and I hear your presence and I hear your intention to, when one wants to share vibrations with the community, the outside community, you really want to heal it in whatever way you can. And I hear that in your music, brother. And it's so powerful, and to be so dedicated for such a long time, and to see the success, because you work with Dreezus, Artson. I mean, I'm sure you could name off. I mean, when you mentioned DJ Scott Rock, I mean, come on, dude.
Well, my list is long. Sometimes I forget, but at the end of the day, hip hop really saved my life for real. A lot of friends have passed in my life since I was a teenager, and it kind of kept me grounded to a sense. I went to school, I learned engineering, I studied radio broadcasting, and a lot of that has to do with hip hop keeping me grounded. I had a lot of things going on. I had kids at a young age. It was very easy in my environment to fall off the rail or fall off the stem of the feather. You know what I'm saying? And I wish I had the traditions in my life earlier. Because that would have been another anchor, you know what I'm saying? So that's why I promote that, the showing the parallels between the two, because that can do a lot for you, and it's done a lot for me and changed a lot for my life, and as far as being more open to my spirituality and really finding out who I am, because growing up and not knowing your history, a lot of people go through that. Not everybody, but some people do.
Well, I mean, there's historical facts that lead us to a point on why. And it's not to harp on it, it's to understand it, so that when people start discussing a lineage of individuals that they've conquered, they're pretty much making up everything they're saying, because they never go to the source, right? The source is us. The source is the people that got left over and that still remember the tiny fragments of love that this amazing culture brought to this planet. This love is immense, and we knew that it was rooted in death. One day that me and you would come back to this earth and remember so clearly, and and share that message, and share our medicine, and walk that road with our head up and into the future. It's unknown, prepared.
For real.
And this is why me, as a major influencer and hip hop blogger nationwide, worldwide, I run Underground Hip Hop Blog, a really well-known independent hip hop website, and I always tell Zero, like, when it comes to not just influential hip hop artists, right, but then if you just take it to the next level and incorporate the indigenous hip hop and the teachings and the history behind it, it just, like I tell Zero, like, you guys are on a whole different pedestal, if you know what I mean.
Right.
Because I'm like, as a fan, I was into hardcore hip hop, hip hop, and then I stumble upon music like Zero of El Vuh, and then I stumble upon music like yours. I'm just like, wow, like, I'm sure you get it all the time where kids hit you up. You're like, yo, like you're not only dope, but you're actually teaching me about my history, if you know what I mean. Right.
Yeah, no, exactly. It's not like this is the only thing I'm doing. I do other projects as well. So it's like I wasn't really doing anything for myself. Like, I was always doing other people's records. So the question became, okay, what do I want to say? What am I going to say? What do I want to do? And
that's cool that you did. You turned your talent on your own self. I know what that feels like. When you are putting a lot of effort into making a group kind of sound good and putting
Yeah, for a lot of times I was in the background, so a lot of people around me would, the records would come out, but nobody really would talk about me because, I'm just in the studio, I'm the engineer, and it's not really what the focus is. And I'm okay with that. That's my job, right? But some people need that hype to be recognized. So when I started adding up everything I've done, I started realizing there was a story here. And when you take into fact of culture, you start thinking, okay, well, how do we put these two together and tell my story? And that's what this was about. Like, you know what? Maybe it's time for me to tell my story. I never thought about telling it before. I never thought anybody would want to hear it. I never thought it would be an impact but I've had those experiences before this where, people have watched me and they've been inspired. So, I thought, what the hell? Let me put myself out there. And, like I always say, even if it changed one person's life or inspired one person, then it's all worth it. You feel me?
Absolutely. That intention is powerful, and it takes a lot of bravery to continue to go on. Like, I remember hearing stories about like musicians that they thought like, oh yeah, you're too old, you shouldn't be doing this anymore. It's like you get better when you do it over and over again. Yeah. When you've done a hip hop project and you just engineered it, you kind of know the structure of the song, the way it should be. When things are off, and
I learned so much as a producer, as an engineer, like for being a producer from engineering. You know what I mean? Like you have so much more. Whereas producers who don't know how to engineer, it's like it's such a great advantage. It's like things just become natural. Exactly what you're saying.
Well, you'll have the language that you need because engineers have a different language than you, and you can't really fake it. You got to know it, and you got to read the book. You got to read these books or get sources where you can understand their language. It's like going into calculus and then going, oh, I'm going to understand this conversation of math with this guy when you're just like a algebra guy. So it's amazing that now you're focusing on this message of David and his hip hop career. What is that message, brother? Break it down. What is it that David wants to say,
Well, I'm just trying to make good music and showcase that, hip hop, and whether it's indigenous or not indigenous, it's all hip hop. Right. And we have something to contribute, and maybe people outside of our community didn't know that, because I was finding people didn't know that. So I was like, you know what? I've been in situations in the past where I was believing in something that other people didn't believe, right? And we would just work hard and eventually, break through. And that was kind of how I looked at it, that, we got some dope music and people need to hear this. And that was really the fuel. So I was just trying to go in and say, you know what? I've been doing this most of my life. Let me take the skills I got. Let me bring what I got to the table and see who's wants to make good music with me in the community. And then from there, we could take it to the, outside the community. And that's what this is about. And keep doing what I'm doing, because I'm still doing other records outside the community. You feel me? And just bring that.
It's not dedicated to indigenous.
Yeah, I'm not doing like, all the records I was doing and just doing this. I'm doing this on top of that. You feel me? So I could have just not been doing that, but I thought, you know what? Like, why not? Why not? I'm dope at what I do. I have a track record. I can bring something to the table, and I'm just trying to uplift artists and work with good artists and make good music at the end of the day.
What people don't understand with art or musicians or people who take, I guess, recording artists is really the way it should be worded. Recording artists is that there's a love of the studio that you get that you just almost miss. When there's also a time where you don't even want to go into it. You're like, oh, I don't want to go into there. It's because you're trying to create this invisible picture for people.
Right.
You want them to like it.
I think you only get burnt out when you've been there too long. But most artists love being in the studio.
Right.
I've been in the studio since I was 16. I had to take a break, but I still I love it. I don't. Yeah,
that break that you're talking about. That's what I'm talking about. Where it's like almost where you're kind of in a loop, and you just need to. I remember going in the studio for the first couple of records and going in the day and coming out in the night, and that used to trip me out. Like I didn't see the sun at all. It was just focus. And so now that you turn this spotlight of talent and comprehension and focus it on a song. Like what is it, a project or is it a single? What are you putting out
right now? What am I doing now?
What are you promoting? Yeah,
right now I got the remixes album came out in I think that was November, right? So the remixes album dropped. Now I've started a new album.
Cool.
Also working, just wrapping up Keith Murray's album.
Nice.
I'm about to head back to New York to work on this project with Eric Sermon that he's doing. And I've also been producing this. I don't know if y'all been checking out. Church keeps posting the Outlaw by Nature project that I'm producing. And that's becoming a monster. And then there's all sorts of other projects that I've been working on, a few singles for different artists. So I've been kind of like keeping myself busy, starting my new project and, working on, projects with people I always been working with and new people, because I'm trying to like get familiar with new artists. And, I'm all about collaborating with, and especially since I'm not an MC per se. I'm not singing. I'm not a singer per se. But as a producer, I feel I'm able to work on more music that way because I don't have to concentrate on just being on the mic. So I'm trying to work on, as many collaborations as I can and just put as much good music as I can right now.
And that's what I noticed about your body of work on YouTube, is that some of them was just your production. Right. And other people rapping on it, and that's good. That's a cool thing. I love that. I love the multiple facets of art that you bring.
And a lot of their, sorry to cut you off, a lot of their, I don't put on my engineering. I just put production. But if you start adding up the engineering to the production, you're like, holy cow.
Well, I mean, when you can mention Keith Murray and Eric Sherman, I mean, come on, these guys are legends in the game. And that's cool that we have actually a person that seems like he was there from the beginning of hip hop to now, and now he has a voice and he has indigenous descent, and he wants to share a piece of that indigenous descent with the community. For me, it was always about, it's weird because like I hear other artists and they're like, I start off in hip hop and I'm a hip hop artist, but I happen to be indigenous. And for me, it was like, no, I'm an indigenous hip hop artist, and it starts off with indigenous, and then hip hop is it's like flipped for me. I remember one time somebody asked me, who are your influences, right? And we were about to play a show and he wanted to announce us on the stage, and he wanted me to say like Wu-Tang, or he wanted me to say somebody in the hip hop genre, and I kept saying my ancestors, and he kept laughing. He's like, no. Who are your influences? And I went, my ancestors. And he's all,
because they didn't get the connection. You feel me? The connection, right? Like that's why I have the this from Brother Ernie, right? Where it's like that kind of put it together to me that I'm like, oh, because I felt like I was missing out. Because where my father's from, right? My father's a pre-Confederate Mi'kmaq person. So when my dad, our family they were born in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland wasn't part of Canada yet when he was born. Okay, so he was born in British North America as an indigenous person. Okay, so I don't really grow up knowing like much about the history of where he's from, but when he was born, you kind of like had to hide that and for survival. Okay, if you know the history of where they're from, you're like, oh God, they're outnumbered a lot. There wasn't many of us, okay? So I don't understand this. So they're not really taught much, let's say. So you're not getting the full effect of, your culture like some people are getting. But for me, hip hop, I didn't realize was the same but different. You feel me?
Right.
And it kind of like I just took to it so easily that I couldn't explain till later when I met Brother Ernie that I was like, oh my God, this makes sense. He made it all make sense. You feel me? So when you say your ancestors, that doesn't sound like your friend was laughing, but that makes sense to me. You know what I'm saying? Right? And I like it's really dope to hear you say that.
It's just because during the time, and you know how hip hop artists are, like you don't want to be like I admire everybody in the hip hop genre, But I'm one of those guys. Even though I don't have $5 million budget, and P Diddy isn't putting my record out or producing it, I feel like that's what I don't sometimes get confused about today's artists is like, you have to put so much effort into sounding just, if not like in your mind, you got to go, I sound just like Mos Def, right? And you do your best shot at it. And sometimes it resonates with people. And sometimes people going, oh, you kind of sound like an off Mos Def, right? I didn't try to sound like anybody. I was just
trying to sound like you.
Yeah, my ancestors. This is what I'm going to do. And I'm going to use this hip hop medium to do it. I'm going to try to pull samples. Like people used to hit me up for production and they go, how do you make these indigenous sounding beats? And I'm like, I just try to manipulate the sound so it sounds close enough to what I want it to sound like. And I feel those are ancestors that are working inside me. So
no, totally.
Although pop culture does affect and influence me, it's not something that I go, okay, I want to be like. But that's a hip hop thing, right? You don't want to be like anybody in the hip hop world. You don't want to be
and then pop usually comes from other things anyway. Things become pop because they become because they're really well and they just become popular, right? That's what it stands for, right? So anything could be pop at the end of the day.
As long as it has an audience that continues to keep it alive. And so I just felt like, when I took my road in making those records that made impacts on people over here in Los Angeles, and they still follow my page, and I just feel really honored to be a part of hip hop's legacy. Whether I'm written in a book or not or anything, I know exactly what you're talking about, David. I know how hip hop spirits, I think globally, just got together and said, kids, you don't have to suffer because there's this, right?
That's right.
And you found that, and that's an amazing story, brother.
And that's why the album is called Spirit of Hip Hop, because of that spirit,
Yeah, it makes sense now. I love to be able to to go further onto the concept, because when we were kids, David, there wasn't that. You had to make an illusion of what that album was about, like real breakdown or anything. And now we get that opportunity where you go, oh, that's why I called that album this. And now people have a clear vision of, or a clear picture of your intention and a piece of your heart. You made it visual for them, at least sonically, through their eyes, through their heart. Big ups for that.
And like for me, it's a therapeutic genre. It's a weird genre, like,
it could go anywhere. You could tell any story about anybody. I was in somewhere the other day, and I heard some like Punjabi hip hop, and I was asking my friend about it. He was like, "Yo," and I was like, "Yeah, man, hip hop's universal. That's the whole point. Like that medicine wheel. It promotes, unity of all races, all people, all what I'm saying, all indigenous people, non-indigenous. Like we're all indigenous to somewhere, right?" So,
isn't it interesting, David, that it was born on this land right here?
Well, that's exactly the idea, right? And I mean, for all we know, they've been doing this from time. We don't know. We weren't there.
Exactly, and we're just continuing on a legacy, because when you start referencing the people that you're referencing in terms of working with them and all that stuff, that was during the time was like what was that popular? Oh my God, I can't believe I'm going blank on it. But broken glass everywhere. It's getting gunk. God, what's the name of that song? Come on, someone help me out.
Oh, you're talking about The Message?
Yeah, The Message.
Yeah, The Message.
Right?
Yeah. And I mean,
when I heard that song, that flip, and I was a kid.
But you got to remember, Melly Mel is Cherokee and black. He's an indigenous person. Like people like for me, this kind of got the conversation going. Like PMD of EPMD, him and I would talk about. He's indigenous as well, right? So like there's a lot more black indigenous people in Turtle Island than you would think, and because from the past and the different there's a lot of history in America and Canada that doesn't get talked about. So there was a lot of mixing, just like where I'm from. There was a lot of mixing, and people get forgotten about, right? And this brings the conversation up. That's what I found, where people want to talk about it. Well, especially with me, where like, oh wait, I didn't know that about you, and then they start telling me about them. You feel me?
Yeah. I understand exactly what you're talking about, and it's interesting that you bring up the indigenous Black descent. You know, a lot of Native American, half African, half Native people. I had a thought of that today coming to the show, and that's interesting that you brought that up, because there are a lot of African and indigenous blood, but they don't talk about it, or that's not something.
And not just here, like even South America, and this has been going on for hundreds of years. And I mean, African people are still indigenous to Africa, so they're still indigenous, right? And
Right.
even for me, my children are all with Black women, so
Wow.
so all my kids are mixed, indigenous, European, and African descent. So
Wow.
I need to be conscious of these things and aware of what I'm teaching them, and it's important.
I think that we've gotten to that place because everybody wants to be of pure blood or have this utopic understanding that no one got touched. But when you bring greed across the ocean and say it's a free for all, people are going to get hurt, and we happen to be those people that got hurt but survived. And that's why I write the music that I write, and I'm sure you're aware, and using those tools of hip hop and pretty much hip hop royalty, bro, when you start mentioning those guys.
Well, it's it's a healing mechanism, right? So it's like
those guys were healers and not perfect. These guys still have to. Everybody works on that. That's what I like about honesty. Where we're talking to Arts, and he's like more on the hip hop side of things, and then it just happens to be that he's indigenous, and he's now starting to infuse that more and more.
Right.
But that's just the development of art, right? Don't you think, David? Like, I'm sure that you've met individuals that were like, man, 2 more years and you're going to be fire. It's like, that it's coming because you can't skip the steps of paying dues.
There's also society, right? And the society and the mainstream, that narrative is controlled, and a lot of us don't get through it, right? So there's going to be a lot of people that are dope. And it's been like this from time. A lot of people who are amazing artists don't get through, right? So nothing's going to be a given. I try to go in with no expectations, and I put my best forward and try to do what I can, and at that point we just hope for the best, and hopefully that message gets out there, and at the end of the day you got to be happy with yourself and happy what you're doing. So I'm enjoying doing dope, good music, and I'm trying to spread that vibe around, and hopefully others will make good music with me.
Yeah, and from what I hear, you work with Dreezus, right?
Yep.
Snotty Nose Res Kids.
Snotty Nose, yep. Shout out to Snotty Nose. Shout
out to those brothers. We're gonna have them on soon. And the list goes on and on. I mean, the brother, you carved out a life for you that's impressive. Not only with the people that you got to work with, but just continuing to do it and doing it in a professional, very high quality thing, because those individuals are very well known, and you deserve to be right there with them. And that's cool.
And coming from a networking hip hop promo side of things, it's cool what you're doing, David, because it's like you're collabing with multifaceted, extra talented artists that are just all part of this indigenous hip hop movement. I've never seen anything like it. You know what I'm saying? In the history of hip hop, maybe you could bring up a couple groups maybe back in the day, but like it had to be 2020 and 2021 to see this rapidly growing genre grow, and then like you're right in the mix of just putting everyone together, and everyone that you work with, they have their own lanes, right? They have their own little fan bases.
Yeah, well, I've been doing hip hop music in Toronto since the mid to late 80s, let's say, and there was a lot of firsts up here, and then as I started going to the States more, and doing records back and forth, I started to, get more and more professional. So by the time I got to the point where, after all the Drake records and the Redman and the Method Man, and I've recorded so many people I forget. But by the time I get to the point where I want to do my own project, I'm able to bring the two worlds together. And that was the idea, was let me do something that hasn't been done. And I didn't even realize that's what I was doing. It was just a natural thing to be like, hey, what if I put these two guys together? You know? And at the end of the day, it's opened up people's eyes on different, on, you know, inside and outside of the communities, right? And that's the beauty of it. It's been all love. And I just want to show the world, you know, like it's time to hear our story, because I realized with my story how much I didn't know. And then I started realizing how much people don't know. And I realized that hip hop is an extremely valuable tool for telling a story. And as storytellers, I mean, if you do it right, you know, look at my brother Q Rock painting pictures on canvases of those words. You know, so I mean, it's very important that, you know, we don't give up on, you know, that resilience of telling these stories. And they don't always have to be conscious, you know, just whatever the story is, you know. At the end of the day,
ultimately a story is just a story of learning. You know, if you learned from it, hopefully it's not a negative connotation, you know, taking.
No, everything's a story. I was just watching wrestling and they were talking about how the story in the ring, they paint a story, you know, like stories are in everything, you know, that's how we learn stuff, right?
Yeah.
You know, so
do you see what I mean, Zero? Like, it had to be 2020 and 2021 for me to get to understand that, you know, there's guys out there, true, genuine, humble dudes like David Strickland, just putting the tribes together. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's inevitable. I mean, I knew it was coming when that strong movement out of Canada came out, where I Don't Know More came out, you know, when they started doing a lot of those protests from Canada. I met a lot of the West Coast Warrior Society people. I met a lot of activists out there in Canada when I was able to tour up there with El Vuh, and it was an amazing outreach that they're doing. So to be able to unify that, understand that we have our own little lane here.
That's right. That just like you were saying, that to unify the nations, we have this voice we can use through this medium. Right. Whether it's just within our community or outside, they're going to hear us outside if we get loud enough.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the point is to just kind of gather ourselves together and once again just recognize each other with love and respect. And as you said before, David, it was a mixture of individuals. I don't think that back in the days it was a race thing. It was more about what you knew and how you carried yourself and how humble you were with
your intent.
Yeah, exactly. Women,
your heart. What's in your heart, right?
Right. I don't like to make our society be this utopic state, because there was ego, there was power, there was discipline, there was misuse of things, you know, and that's just the normality of life. But
and also lifespan was shorter as well.
Yeah,
I mean, people forget, and people died faster, not from disease, but also from getting killed. Like, you know, there's still murders and stuff, but you know,
I mean, when you're riding alongside a horse trying to hunt something, or when you're running after something in the middle of the night and you
fall and die,
it's just, we were braver, and we had. I think we just had a different perspective about life. You know, life was a gift, and we enjoyed it, and we weren't afraid to its challenges. Right, the fact that you can get hurt or physically, even inside, emotionally. You know, which we suffer a lot in our communities, right? Because the reservations suffer from methamphetamine use, suicides, and stuff like that. I told Armando, Armando, we need to do something as natives from Los Angeles to try to reach out to these individuals who are dying because they're going, I'm never going to leave this place. I'm never going to be anything.
There's layers, right? There's layers.
Right. And if we can go out there and just have an outreach and build the structure here in Los Angeles where natives are welcome, of all kinds, of all sorts, of all mixes, don't have to be pure blood. You could just be #global indigenous. Have a mindset where you respect the earth, you respect the water, you respect the air, you respect everything around you with humility and love. And that's our goal. And I think that's your goal with your music, right? And then everybody else is trying to work and have fun, right? These guys are young. No one's telling these kids not to have fun.
Exactly.
Have fun, but know that there's consequences when you use other substances that are foreign, right?
Well,
Like,
you gotta think like you gotta look ahead at like, you know, it's okay to have a good time, but like I don't want to die for it, you know. Like I
well
gotta,
said. That's an
and
OG,
I've, you
that's an
know,
OG quote right there.
and I've lost some friends from, you know, going too hard. Like when I don't really, you know, I'm a little older now. I've slowed down a lot. I don't really party. I don't go out too much or anything like that. But when I did, my my thought process was you got to shut it down for the night. You
Right.
can't just keep going and going. When you get into a lifestyle like that, man, that shit will kill you. And I've seen that happen. And it's sad to watch. And
When I
addiction is a terrible thing, but you know, you got to be careful. Is all I'm saying.
Yeah, and that, you know, shout out to everybody who's, you know, conscious and
Yeah.
wants to have a good time, but no limits. And some of
Yeah.
those limits, you know, when when I was able to go to Mexico City and be alongside like people like Zach De La Rocha and Calle 13 and really big, they were so professional, man. Those guys were like in and out of the concert. They were in their hotel, fucking resting their voice. It's like it's their job.
Yeah.
And if you do start to get popular because you're wild and dysfunctional and dangerous to yourself, and that's what you're getting popular for, well then that's kind of like a
We're
waste of,
using the substance, you know. Where's the foundation?
right? You're not even going to enjoy the success that you're having. Enjoy it. You should be able to enjoy. You should be able to get up in the morning, look at the sun and go, damn, I did a lot of things that are impacting individuals, whether it be on a conscious level or whether it be on just being happy. You know,
Right.
just I wrote a song and made people happy. Fucking there you go. Great. You know,
Exactly. There's so many beautiful ways in life to, you know, to like there's so many things you can enjoy.
you know, David, Armando was telling me how similar our roads are in terms of like music.
Mm.
When the way, you know, and now getting to this point of the interview and really kind of hearing you out, because you had children young, I had children young, and I know that I didn't want to be absent from them. I had a business, even though I was absent from them for a little bit, but not like in the way where, you know, you're gone for months at a time.
Right.
So I kind of feel your story, and I'm glad that you're still continuing to inspire people, because you're inspiring me to continue to keep going and making music and not have an expectation. I don't have no expectations anymore. I mean, I remember when I was young, I would want those awards. You know, oh, I know I'm good enough to be.
Yeah.
And then you realize those awards come with consequences and a lot of compromise.
Well, for me, I just kind of like put my nose down and kept working. And every once in a while, I look around and go, "Oh shoot, okay, we're doing something. Keep going." You know,
Sweet. That's dope. That's a true discipline and master, and that I'm so excited to be in this interview with you, David, because you know our people deserve to know that there's a lot of people out there that put in work in the foundations of hip hop. You know, and you're one of those individuals.
well, that was kind of the idea about doing the record. That was the purpose, was to, you know, give that you know, let people know, because maybe like I didn't have that, maybe somebody needs that. And it's not about me or tooting my own horn or bigging me up. It's not. It's about the artists who are on the album and you know, making good music and showing people, just telling my story and saying, hey, you might not have known this, but you know, because I have a lot of history in Canadian hip hop. So you know, there's I'm not the only one. There's a few important people that come and play in the puzzle. But when you step back and you look at it, if you take a few of us out of that puzzle, that changes the whole landscape. And it took me a while to realize that. And it was a lot of times being America, working with artists where they'd be like, they'd tell me like, yo, gee, it's like you did the whole country. What are you talking about? Like, be proud of that, right? So I thought about that in terms of being an Indigenous person. And, you know, there being kids out there who are not knowing that, you know, people hit me all the time like, oh, shoot, I remember that song. I didn't know you did that song. Wow, you know, and that, you know, changes the narrative a little bit. So that's the goal here, was kind of be like, you know, sometimes you might not see it, but we're around. We're, you know.
Yeah. Well, look, David, growing up in high school, Zero knows I was a heavy underground hip hop fan. Like, you know, I run underground hip hop blog. Like, to be so devoted into the underground game and like digging through crates. And then a friend of mine got me exposed to quote unquote Canadian hip hop, right? So in LA, a Mexican kid in LA, you know, it kind of it hits you differently, right? So I got exposed to a guy named Mocha Only back in 2002. And then I was a huge diehard Swollen Members fan.
Right.
So I don't know if you know those names.
Yeah, I know they are. I don't know them personally. Right? I know I've met Mocha once. I haven't met the other two dudes.
Yeah, Mad Child and Prevail and Rob the Viking out of Canada. From what I know, they've done very well out there. It's I just get back into my hip hop days, man, because I love talking to artists from Canada. Because
they're from the West Coast.
Are they?
Yeah, they're from Vancouver, which is like the LA of Canada. You know, it's like it's the most big city. It's right on the coast. I had a time one time I was doing EPMD was doing a tour, and Eric's like, meet me in Vancouver. I'm like, you know, I'm in New York, and Vancouver is like in LA, right? Because Americans don't have no concept of Canada's bigger than America. Like it goes further west and east, and then it's huge. It's just less populated, right?
And I'm part of that group, man. Back you know, when I was in high school, I was thinking the same thing. I was like, yo, hey, the homies Swollen Members are from Canada.
Yeah.
Probably all from the same place. I remember.
It's big. It's big as hell. It's big. I think Russia is number 1 as far as size, and then Canada is number 2, something like that. I could be wrong. We're up there in the top.
It makes sense. The British, right? Or the British owns the currency of Canada there on the British.
And Vancouver is in British Columbia. That's the name of the province there, British Columbia, which is right above Washington State. So look how that worked out. Washington State, British Columbia. Maybe started on names.
There you go. I remember one time they offered El Vuh a show, and we're like, yeah, it's in Saskatchewan in Canada. And I was like, yeah, that's like close, huh? Like we could just, it's like way in there. We had to take like 3 days.
Montana.
Oh my God, it was a great.
And the joke is, you could fit like 5. Some of our provinces, you could probably fit 5 to 8 states in them. You know what I'm saying? Wow. So like they're huge, right?
It was crazy when I flew to Saskatchewan. I had to get on this little charter plane, you know, to get to actual Saskatchewan. And guess who was on the plane? Sugar Ray Leonard.
No way.
Sugar Ray Leonard. I sat right by Sugar Ray Leonard. I shook his hand and I was like, oh my God, his hand weighed like 10 pounds. Yes, like I could see why he would. Yeah, I don't know. He got off in Saskatchewan. And I know it was him because, you know, me and Eric, you know, we're kids. We didn't have toys. We had sports. So, you know, those fights were a big thing for all the big brothers that were in the neighborhood. So I knew who he was. And I was like, Sugar Ray Leonard? He's all, yes, how you doing? And he shook my head and I was like, wow. And I was like, you live in Saskatchewan? He didn't answer the question, but
I never been to Saskatchewan.
So David, tell us about your experiences out in Los Angeles.
I haven't been to LA yet.
Wow. Ever? Wow. Well, no, you have a home and brothers out here waiting for you.
Definitely have a home out here, brother, for you.
I've had some invitations. I'm going to New York next week. So, I mean, I'll be in the country, but I haven't had a reason.
Just come over. Come over.
Yeah, my homeboy was just...
We're kind of close.
Just went out there and he was like, yo, come crash on my couch. I'm like,
Like how I describe it, like how I describe Los Angeles. I'm from out here. It's just like Zero knows. It's a concrete jungle, bro.
Oh yeah.
Word.
But we have
my problem is this. Cali is like Jamaica to me. I might never come back. If I go there, I might never leave. If I go to California, I might be like, ship all my stuff in a box and send it down.
Absolutely. This is the biggest Amsterdam ever.
It must be amazing out there.
It is cool. You know, the vibe has changed a lot in California.
Right.
Because in the early 90s, it was about like, you know, gangster kind of rap kind of thing. Now it's
changed a lot.
I mean, what I'm predicting Los Angeles is going to be in the next 20 years is going to be like a Paris, like a mega art city.
Right.
Because, you know, when you get a phone and you're able to do things like LA Natives and be with promoters like Armando, big things can happen very quickly. And I think it's gotten to that point where social media is ruling things. And so if it's not hard if you have good content to build a good base in Los Angeles if you're consistent.
And it's funny how you mentioned that, Zero, because we're big heavy SEO guys, and we're in the tech field, we're in the promotional game period, and then we're major in the hip hop promotion business. And like me and my brother run this organization, and we always tell ourselves, like, man, like, kudos to every other city out there, but we wouldn't have made it this far if it wasn't for Los Angeles. It's a weird thing, right? A lot of people kind of don't understand it and figure, hey, you could probably, open in Vegas or New York or in Florida.
Yeah, but LA is still LA, right?
Yeah, and it's just like maybe people kind of hate because we're from LA and we kind of luxury about it, but how is it that, Zero, that we're just scaling out in the tech space? Like, it has to be LA, right? It's just like well, I just noticed something that a lot of artists eventually land in LA and then they come to Underground Hip Hop Blog or something, I
was watching this I was watching this PBS doc, and they were talking about like the migration west, right? And they would talk to these natives on the way to the west, and they would talk about this place that was like a dreamland. It was beautiful, it was perfect weather, it was over there, right? And that's the land that the Chumash, the Tongva, all these other there was a lot of natives here in Los Angeles. So Los Angeles has a very deep root with native and indigenous history, because people don't know that outside of Blythe, California, there was a Aztec settlement for 100 years. That's how beautiful this place was. That's how the climate and the abundance and food and things they could, things. So anyways, California is home to indigenous people. This is an indigenous land, and we shouldn't forget that. So David, whenever you come, man, you have a home here and a brother that will help you, navigate around.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I felt like we have a connection. Like that was the whole point of LA Natives, is to meet people in different regions and get their story and know that you're just as relevant to us, because you're a strong artist, and we need to know your story. We need to know that you were at those songs. We need to hear the stories. Engineering Method Man and all these
stories. They have the stories. Yeah.
Those,
I got stories,
so
man.
Fun. Those are so fun, man. Those.
Well, that's the thing. I don't. Sometimes I forget about it, and you're right. Those stories need to be heard, because I got some good ones. People always tell me I need to do a book, because there's just I'm just living my life, but some of them are good, because I feel so blessed so many times when I'm in situations, and I I forget, how hard it is. I owe a lot of it to luck, let's say, or just working hard and being in the right place. But sometimes you have to stop and smell the roses and go, damn, I'm lucky to be here, right? And that's really what it's about. And then you get to share that with people, and then, maybe they could take something away from it.
Well, they definitely do. Every artist who picks up a brush or picks up a microphone or picks up a pencil and writes a poem, they're gonna impact some art. I don't know if you ever heard this explanation, David or Armando, but there was this guy explaining how art transcends time and how people innately protect it if it's masterpiece, right? Like let's take for instance, for lack of a better example, the Mona Lisa, right? That was painted hundreds of years ago, but yet it was painted in such a way by a person who was recognized that people felt the need to protect it and protect it and protect it. So remember that we all have that potential to make that masterpiece that people protect and keep it pushing even long past your time here on Earth.
Very true.
So
very true.
Continue to do what you do, David. I mean, you're inspiring me, man. You really put a happy feeling in my heart, knowing that you can still continue to move on and keep going. Because, I didn't make it, but I've had fans tell me, man, your music, I was a gangbanger and now I'm not.
Right.
That to me was like, whoa.
Yeah, exactly. That's inspiring in itself.
I won my MTV Music Award right there because I saved this gentleman's perspective. Right. I didn't save his life, I saved his perspective.
And things aren't always going to be perfect either, and things always haven't been perfect. You know, there's been plenty of ups and downs along the way. But at the end of the day, the key is to not to give up, you know, on yourself, right?
Nice.
You fall, you just get back up and keep going. And you might not be able to keep going the way you were going, but you might have to keep going in a different way as long as you keep going, right?
Yeah.
Because when you give up, you're giving up on yourself.
And that is indigenous. That's an ancient Aztec or indigenous saying, is to the last breath. Yeah. Till the last breath. Till my last breath, you're going to see me fighting for what I believe in.
And wow, this interview is definitely a hand in glove fit, right, Zero?
Absolutely,
like,
man. David,
this is what LA Natives is all about.
Thank you for coming on, bro. This is like I said, I'm elated inside knowing that there's still people out there that are still inspired on bringing back the stories of our ancestors and how powerful we are and how we can transcend genocide.
And congratulations on those nominations at the international.
I mean, those nominations
are the year, single of the year, producer of the year, and collaboration of the year.
Yeah, and those nominations are really for those artists those songs are nominated. You know, that's not me. I did my part, but I couldn't do anything without the artist at the end of the day, right?
That's very humble right there, right, Zero?
Absolutely. I mean, you don't get that. I think that the indigenous community, not to point anybody out, but all we have is what we could share with each other. And if we can share our talent and that's where the humility comes out and going, you know, David's just saying, no, just a little part of that. But
well, that was the intention. What got me here was on my journey, I kind of stopped and I was trying to find my place in the community, being the indigenous community from where I'm from and in Canada. And I kind of was like, you know, people try to push me in different directions. And I thought about, well, what do I do? And I do music. So I said, let me try a thing and let me work with some, you know, members of my community and see what happens. And that's how we got here.
That's cool. And look at the outcome, David. I mean, it's amazing.
That's all I'm saying. Anything's possible.
It's amazing. It's amazing for those brothers to put their faith in their own people and put this event and then have and recognize the people that they need to recognize, like David.
Right.
Yep.
It's cool.
You gotta work for yourself, but you also gotta work for community, right?
That was our power.
Yeah,
really. Exactly. Our power was in the community.
Our power was nothing without community.
Absolutely.
So David, what message do you have for that 18, 19-year-old, 20-year-old producer, MC, engineer that has that reason to incorporate indigenous culture, their history into their music, but they're kind of hesitant on it? Because, you know, there's always that brink, like you said, like the music today for these kids is a whole different realm. It's all about SoundCloud and YouTube and glorification, instant gratification, right? You know what I'm saying? So what's your message to these youngsters that are trying to, you know, not only make hip hop, but, you know, incorporate indigenous into their catalog?
I would just say to be true to yourself. And I mean, don't be afraid to try stuff. Like, you know, whatever your background is, the songs don't always have to have that in it, but don't be afraid to try that sometimes and do it in a good way, you know, because corniness is not always, you know, like, I don't know about y'all, but corny doesn't always work. But just be true to yourself, you know, and, you know, experimenting, you know, like that's how I make most of my music, is by experimenting, by playing around. And sometimes I go outside of the box that I wouldn't normally be comfortable in on purpose. And then stuff is boring. And sometimes if I get frustrated, I put it down and I go do something else, and I come back and I realize, and then something else happens, or I realize it's way better than I thought when I left, because I got, you know, stagnated or whatever, you know what I'm saying? So you can't be, you got to like pace yourself. It's, you know, my uncle always says to me, it's a marathon, not a sprint.
Yeah. Right? I know exactly what you're talking about, because when I got out of the habit of listening to someone that at least when it comes to writing something, you know,
and enjoy yourself, because it's supposed to be.
I start writing, and it's a process, right? I write it, and then until I start seeing that the lines are not, and I'm struggling to rhyme, I just put it down
Yeah.
instead of forcing it. Like I could do this,
Yeah,
or I
you
could.
want it to be like, oh. You know that energy when you're like, oh, I got it. Oh,
Yeah.
it just starts coming out.
Yeah.
Or like a
But-
painting, you know, like
Yeah.
it's the thing, right?
Right, and then you just keep layering it and layering it and layering it, and the more you layer it, the better it comes out. I think just comes out as like we spoke earlier, that masterpiece that people can't. I remember one time somebody sent me a message on my DM. He said, "I can't stop listening to this song. I just keep playing over and over again."
Well, have you ever made a song like that?
Yeah, he was sending me a message.
I just
like,
made a song like that the other day.
Yeah,
I can't stop playing it.
that's dope. See, that's just, I
And
kind of
I'm like, that's how Turtle Island was. I don't know if y'all heard Turtle Island. With Turtle Island was like that. When I made Turtle Island, I was like, oh my god, I think this is really good. And I've been doing music my whole life, and sometimes songs I work on, I don't necessarily always expect them to be a hit, and then they become a hit, right? But this, I was like, oh, I think this is really good, and I kept playing it and making it better and better. And then eventually it came out, and like people love that song. So I was like, okay, cool. I'm not crazy. You feel me? And so that's important for us as artists. We need a little bit of validation for ourselves while we're creating. It doesn't mean I need to be like blah blah, but I need to know I'm on the right path sometimes, right?
Well, because you're spending 20 hours, 15 hours, 30 hours on this invisible thing that you're trying to show people, right? It's invisible. It goes through a mechanism where vibrations come out and you hear it, but it's invisible.
Exactly.
And you're going, it's a good one. Just wait, and then you present it, and obviously it does. But I know what you mean when you go, oh man, I didn't think that song was gonna make it. Like, where did that song come from? That was the song that I paid least attention to, and then you realize that the audience goes, no, this was the best thing I've heard.
At the end of the day, right?
And then I kind of look at it like cooking, right? I know when my food's ready that I cook my children when I can't stop tasting it. I can't stop tasting the food, it has enough spice, it has everything.
So it's a good sign playing it over.
Yeah. So when you're playing that song over and over again, then you're going, ooh, it's tickling something.
You got to know when to put it down for a minute until it's released, because nothing worse than having it. Because I know about y'all, I've had songs come out and they become big hits, and I don't want to hear them no more because I've been in the studio listening to them over and over, trying to finish, and then the world loves it, and the world's playing it, and it's driving you nuts because you're like, you know when a hit song is like, you get to that point where you hate it now, right? You don't want to do that to yourself. You got to know where the fine line is.
Absolutely, but express your heart fully. I think that's the best advice I think that David and I can give anybody is don't. I think when he says try something new, he's like, don't be afraid to follow your first instinct, your heart. Don't overthink how people are going to receive your art. Just let the art flow naturally from your heart, from the universe, because that's our source.
And you also control when it gets released too, right? So
yeah. And if you're independent, if you haven't signed contracts with individuals who control your art,
you gotta hand it in. So
yeah,
nobody's coming in here and stealing my files. I don't think.
Yeah,
I'm the gatekeeper. Hopefully.
Absolutely, David. Well, this is amazing conversation, man, and I'm so happy that I learned a little bit of history today about your contribution to the foundation of a music that really kind of penetrated all Turtle Island. I mean, because there are kids in like Argentina that are hitting it big, like have smooth style.
If you go travel the world, I mean, some of the people I work with would tell me stories when they come back, and I would just be like, you gotta go here because hip hop is everywhere.
I know that Mexico City is insane.
Yeah, my neighbors just came back from there. He told me the same thing. He's like, you gotta come to Mexico.
Yeah, well, we'll be there, David, and we bring our family.
Yeah.
We have roots in. I have roots in Mexico City. I did a lot of stuff professionally in there with El Vuh, and we're planning on some things with Armando, since he's an amazing promoter and an amazing mind on how to get things done. And so when we do that, whoever in LA natives family, you'll definitely be a part of it because that's historical. That's historical, right?
He was asking if I'd ever be coming to LA for Indigenous Peoples Day at some point, and yeah, definitely. Moving forward, I mean, originally my album was scheduled to come out when it did, but the pandemic hit, so I didn't stop it. But originally we wanted to tour this record, you know what I mean, with all these artists. So, you know, we would have hopefully have gotten to LA to do a show and stuff like that. So, knowing I'm doing a new album, you know, hopefully by, you know, whether things are back to normal or not, it would be nice to tour and get around and show, you know, get some of these artists on the road.
Well, that being said, just make sure, and I'm sure Zero could vouch for me, make sure I'm on that contact list when you guys are deciding to come to LA and throw a show, right, Zero?
Absolutely, because Armando right here has the pretty much lock and key over any venue that's like worth playing out here, because you want to play a good venue. If you can come to LA, play the venues that you can film and have a historical value. There's a lot of history in Los Angeles when it comes to multimedia art. And so when you get to the stages like the Whiskey, the Roxy, the Regent, the Novo, things like those venues right there, to say, I'm maybe not made it, but I'm here. Here you go. Here I am. And you get the best sound behind you, and you get the top engineers that are mixing you while you're playing live. And that's an amazing feeling. That alone, as an artist, you know, I know people go out there to do art and they try to be rich about it, but when you're a true artist, you just want to be on a stage that just accommodates your talent.
Now, Zero, tell us a little bit about the Indigenous Peoples Day.
Indigenous Peoples Day. Well, we played 3 of them, and they were on Hollywood Boulevard, man. Hollywood and Highland. And it was this really small stage, and you know, this, you know, $300 PA.
But do they block off the streets?
Yeah. They blocked off the street from Highland all the way till, I don't know what the next street is over there, but
so that's a big deal, right?
Right in front of the Chinese theater. It was amazing, and that was during the No Dapple time, and so we were able to protest about No Dakota Pipeline, and people are walking on the sidewalk, you know, back and forth going, why is the street empty? Why am I able to? It's like, and then it grew, and then they ended up doing one right in front of City Hall where Taboo ended up headlining. So that was about something I was going to mention, is that Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Los Angeles is a very big deal, not only for Indigenous people, for non-Indigenous people recognizing and wanting to heal from the colonial rape of our people and our land.
They forget in their day-to-day lives, right?
Yeah. So it's very well supported by Indigenous community. It's not a protest. It's kind of like, no, these Indigenous people deserve it. And that's why the city of Los Angeles declared October 12th Indigenous Peoples Day. So you know that we are going to be a part of that.
Yeah, we definitely need to be a part of that.
That's the same day we dropped that Apple Music playlist last October. I don't know if you guys have seen that playlist. That has my artwork on it as well. And that's a permanent playlist that's updated, you know, weekly with current, you know, Indigenous music.
Absolutely. Well,
trying to bring, you know, because I was on, I go on these platforms, and I notice, you know, you could have all kind of genres on there that I would never think of, but you don't have, you know, Indigenous genres, or you don't have us in good places. So I'm trying to fight for us to like have those spaces, because we deserve those spaces just like everybody else.
Absolutely. And I just think it's come, I think it's just come to a place where like Armando has enough work, and I'm pointing him out to say that we have people in our Indigenous community who is a publicist, who has those connections. It's time to centralize those talents, centralize it not just for popularity and money, but try to put it into a community that's trying to heal itself from a trauma that was imposed on them a long time ago. And I'll never forget, and I'll never stop saying that, because it needs to be embedded into the people that believe in a system of white supremacy, because that time is done. White supremacy is over. You can't lie to everybody for hundreds of years. And so Indigenous Peoples Day is born. And then you get support not only from Indigenous people, but from non-Indigenous people.
Right.
And then we have a healing ceremony.
And that's the intent of the shift in consciousness that we're going through, is to bring that, what we spoke of, that unity of all the cultures and all the races coming together. And that's really what I'm hoping the intent of what they had in mind for this land, when they came here, which is, we all know the story, but, at the end of the day, it hasn't been that way because we're still fighting those injustices that have been around, right?
Well, I mean, it's never going to be that way. I don't think they'll ever come to a point where they're going to be like, yeah, you know what, we should be cool. Even their great grandchildren. But that's okay. I'm not saying that they need to. I think what we need to do is go, we are Indigenous. We know how to communicate with the land. We know how to relate with the water. We understand the function of the wind. We understand the principal deity of life is the sun.
Right.
We don't need anything from anyone or any other source. And we keep trying to be inclusive to individuals who don't want to include us.
Right.
So don't include us.
Let us do our thing. Now.
Let us be. Dude, did you let any corporation or any record deal stop you from being David Strickland? Absolutely not. You still kept creating music.
Right.
Back in the 40s, the oldies genre of music, the oldies that were born in Los Angeles, were just Mexicans imitating R&B singers. Right? But they had their own salsa. They had their own flavor.
Right.
And they never grew out of
ska music. That's how ska music was, right?
Exactly. So we continue to move forward constantly because it's in our DNA. It's embedded in our blood that we constantly are perpetually moving forward in this great universe that we call life. That was the wisdom that was given to us thousands of years ago. So as Indigenous people, as Indigenous blood, all we're doing is saying, enough with your nonsense. Leave us alone. We know how to pray. We know where to pray. We know what to do. We know how to raise our children. We know how to love our children. Just in a good way. Let us be. And that's how Indigenous Hip Hop Awards recognizes Indigenous talent and Indigenous intention, because there is a lot of healing there. Right? We have a very dysfunctional community, but we have every answer for that dysfunction.
Right.
We have every answer. It comes in your songs, David. Comes in the
songs.
songs.
Our best to get the messages through, the best we could.
Yeah. Because we like, people don't understand. It's not adults that were forced. Adults were assimilated into it, but it was children that were forced to follow these rules.
That's right.
Because the Native American schools, boarding schools, were taking children just by the hundreds.
Yeah.
And so they indoctrinated these blank canvases.
That's what they're doing here. We had residential schools.
There you go. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. The residential schools. It was. We got to stop lying to ourselves.
Yeah.
And stop thinking that just because a piece of paper says peace, equality, doesn't mean it's offered to you.
Right.
Peace, equality comes from a community that decides to protect itself in a humble way, in the best way it can. Right. And it's very simple to be Indigenous. It's not complicated.
Right.
Respect yourself and respect others.
Well, look, this podcast, what I'm taking away is that, like how Olmeca said, and just like how Artson said, like, when you jump on LA Natives, it's kind of like you're sitting at the dinner table. And you're having full-blown great conversations. This is not your cookie-cutter podcast / interview, right, Zero?
Absolutely not.
Like, I'm sure, David, you have so much to say, right?
At the end of the day, I kind of going to follow whoever's the host and, bring forth what you want to hear at the time. I'm not really coming with an agenda, I speak through the music. A lot of times I have to stop myself and just say, yo, dude, just speak through the music. And that's really the key. And that's what artists do, right?
Yeah, you know, it's a little bit of an introvert that gets to express himself publicly. You
Yeah,
know, and
exactly.
you know, we some of us are shy like that. You know,
Yeah.
Armando really brought this out of me. I've never been a host. I've always been interviewed throughout my whole 22 years of doing music, and but then I felt like, well, I have a little bit of an insight that's different than just a regular host that just kind of likes music. I kind of know what engineering is. I kind of know what production is. I kind of know
Right.
what.
Well, you
Oh,
seem to be doing a good job.
well, thank you so much, David. I appreciate it. I'm humbly doing it to all of my community out there in LA natives, and I'm just doing my best and having a big smile and having a good heart doing it because
Up to good
I
work.
love you guys. I love all my community. I love all my natives across Turtle Island.
And you know what? Do me a
It's
huge
like
favor,
this.
David. Like on your next upcoming projects, man, just reach out to Zero, bro. Check out his catalog, man. Like I think you guys could definitely cook up a dope single.
I'm all
Absolutely.
about it. I'm all about it. I'm all about collabing and reaching out to people from. So you got my information. Hit me up. Let's make it happen.
Absolutely. It would be an honor to do anything with you,
I'm
bro.
open to that now.
Yeah, it would be an honor to do anything with you, brother, because I
Let's
mean,
make it happen.
you're like a history, like your history, man. If I could say, hey, I got that under my belt. I mean, Method Man, EPMD. I mean,
We're just
Scholar.
getting started, brother. We're just getting started.
Absolutely, and we know, and you know that our message is together is that we just want to bring our pot to the potluck and go here you go, it's for
Yeah.
you
It's my
because we
piece
love
of
you.
pie.
You know,
Yeah, that's right.
that's all it is. No,
That's
I'm not
exactly how
clout
I
chasing.
feel.
I'm not trying to be anything other than a good artist that does that takes the time to craft masterpieces. I think
Right.
that's
Exactly.
You know what?
And not having that ego is really important.
yeah,
Just being like, whatever, man. You ain't gonna love me, but I gave you 100%.
And
yeah.
I can't wait for the fans to tune in on our archives on this episode. It's just like, like I'm just a kid eating candy right here, just listening to two OG elders in the hip hop game. This is a award-winning interview right here.
Well, thank you, man. And David, like I said, like
Locals.
your influence, man, and hopefully will not hopefully is going to be remembered. If LA natives have anything to do with it, because I mean, we have to find out our historians in hip hop and know that there's roots that go back all the way back. It sounds like you went all the way back, David. And
Yeah, like you're gonna have. I don't know if you had Brother Ernie on, but you should have Brother Ernie on here as well. I mean,
yeah, that'd be great. I mean,
Yeah, I'll definitely want to reach out to him. He's definitely
he's
a true elder.
definitely a historian of hip hop.
absolutely, that'd be great. Another conversation of our
He's
family.
also
community.
the keynote speaker in the indigenous hip hop awards. So
Super cool. Wow. It's cool to be a part of that event, Armando.
Right,
I'm
yeah.
glad you were able to pull that off.
We just got picked up as one of the main media outlets for that awards with LA Natives and Underground Hip Hop Blog, and we're definitely looking forward on promoting not just you, but everyone that's nominated, everyone that's involved in that movement.
it should be a great show. I recorded a beat tutorial for it that'll be on part of the show where I make a beat for the show, and I think they're going to do a contest where somebody can win that beat, and then I will, finish that production and they can put that song out.
Wow.
So yeah, it should be dope.
That's kind of unique, man. Getting a beat from David and that's kind of cool.
Right.
That's the cool thing when you get to a certain point in your art where it's not about what you're getting for it, but more
Yeah,
about
I mean, people don't understand. I give music away all the time. I give free beats out all the time.
You heard it here.
I give back to people so much. People have no idea. I give more than I take. If you really realize that, if you knew me, you would understand that. And it's not about money, like you're saying. That's not why I'm here doing this. Because if I was, I probably would have gave up a long time ago.
Yeah, that's right. You know what you just described was an abundant thinking. It's if I give, I give more than I take. Because you don't need much.
No,
we don't.
You gotta invest in people sometimes.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, man, you're right, Armando. This was a great interview.
Right, and this won't be the last time we have David. We're definitely going to bring you back. We do have open Wednesday forum discussions. And we're looking forward to playing all your new music and sharing your music to the LA Natives audience. And yeah, man, thank you for your time. Thank you for the interview, bro.
Anytime.
Anything you guys anything you or your team needs from us when it comes to promotion, Instagram promo, just reach out to us and we got you.
I love that. Appreciate it. Likewise, anytime.
All right, my brother. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. What was that?
I'm holding you to that beat.
Absolutely, for sure. For sure. David.
Wow. That's another wow interview, right? That's like 12 consecutive wows.
It just, we need to hear the story of indigenous art. And that right there blew me away. When he started saying Scala Rock, damn, that's blew me away. David, thank you so much for being a part of LA Natives community. You out there were very lucky to hear some history, you know, and we've been lucky, just like Taboo, you know, like Taboo comes on LA Natives is like out of nowhere, right? And then we got
you know, because you know, it was really intimidating for me as a hip hop fan to reach out to the homie, because it's like I know how impactful, how influential he is, and you know how I have this vetting process. I only want to reach out to the best of the best, and you know how it is, Zero, man. Like I can't just reach out to anyone. No. So when I reached out to David, I was just shocked when he accepted the invite, because I'm like, yo, this is just like a, you know, for everyone that knows, it was kind of like a hobby podcast, like a prototype podcast. It ended up just becoming its own thing. Right, Zero?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
One thing led to another. We're just nailing some of the best interviews for indigenous hip hop. There is no other indigenous hip hop podcast out there like how we're doing it, right, Zero?
Well, because we're a little bit freer. We have no corporate agenda. There's not even a popularity thing that we're trying to do here. I mean, what we're trying to do is just give you good garments. We're trying to give you a movement to get behind, and a message that has been, you know, being spoken of since they came. You know, this message of resistance isn't new. This message has been there for a while.
You know what was super dope? How he pointed out the eagle feather.
Yeah, the hawk feather. Yeah, the hawk wing
the hawk wing.
Yeah, that was given to me by the creator. So, I mean, shout out to David, man. I'm still kind of digesting that history lesson, and the humility too, because he didn't seem very, you know.
Well, bro, you're always asking me for beats and shit. Like, that's a beat right there.
Yeah, for sure. I'm
and
totally
a collab.
Absolutely. David and I definitely have to work together, and I would be honored to.
And
David,
for sure, if we work with David, it's like I'm gonna shoot the video. It's gonna be a video, you know.
Absolutely.
Like Zero. We have a lot of talks about moving forward with the music, and damn, man, we have a lot of plans, man. Because now the International Indigenous Music Awards is out there.
Yeah.
And
that's gonna be fun.
We need to get you in there.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun to be a part of that event, and to have you, you know, do the hard work that you're doing with them, and then recognizing it and stuff like that. That's powerful.
That was a big co-stamp for us, right? For the LA Natives,
man. Whatever it is, man. We you know, we're gonna come in the house and we're gonna be ourselves, and you know our politics, and you know, maybe not even our politics, but you know our belief system. Our belief system is that indigenous people of this continent have a voice. And now Armando, with Underground Hip Hop Blog, with LA Natives, and now the International Indigenous Hip Hop Awards, hosted by Mike Bone. And, you know, follow us on Twitch, and follow us on lanativespodcast.com, on our IG. We really just do it for the love of our community, and knowing that community really responds to our intention. And that intention is just be yourself. Be proud of where you come from. Don't be scared of colonial descriptions about your past. Embrace it. Love yourself. Listen to indigenous artists like David Strickland, Olmeca, Artson, and anyone else you can research. And if we don't know of them, shoot them down. JB,
the first lady.
We need to get more women. So if you know of any other women artists out there that will vibe with LA Natives, you know, shout them out, you know, and send them our way, because we have to be completely inclusive to this movement. It's not a male movement. It's not a protest. This is healing. Healing from an imposed idea of white supremacy. We're no longer under their rule like that no more, because you are intelligent. You can find your own road back home. It's not hard. Just stop doubting that road, because that road is a special road. It's a journey that will challenge you. It will put your face in the mud. But that's a part of it. That's a part of life. All those challenges. So, LA Natives, man.
LA Natives, tune in next week. We have Dreezus coming up. Huge artist, very influential artist.
What's the chat? Is the chat saying anything? I see like major.
You know what? Yeah, we have Joaquin Thunderbird. We got
obviously Joaquin's here. What up, Joaquin? Is Brandon here?
I don't think Brandon is here.
Well, shout out to you, Brandon, because you always listen.
Shout out Brandon. We have Azteca Mayan Desante here.
Nice. I don't recognize that name.
Ori 83.
Azteca Desante.
The Alligator, she's pretty dope. We have a comment there.
Oh, no way. What up, Sipali? How you doing? That's cool. That's cool that you caught the show.
We have Joaquin. He just commented, look up indigenous.
She's a dope hip-hop artist, too. You gotta follow Alligator. Alligator is a dope hip-hop artist. She's
pretty dope, right?
Yeah, she played at the Lexington with us.
Yes.
That's what,
Yes, we definitely need to get her on the show.
Yeah, you'll do the booking and all that stuff. So, yeah, if you're out there and you're still on, hit up Mondo, because...
Right. Go on the website. It's lanativespodcast.com. Support by hitting that merch link, purchasing your dope t-shirt, purchasing your dope hoodie. We're definitely going to be rolling out some giveaways. As soon as our garments are all 100% stitched up, we're going to be giving away stuff every week. We're going to be getting some hats in, some dope hats. Mm-hmm. And that's how you support. There's a donation area on our website. Feel free to put in a couple bucks, because that's going to really help us a lot scale out this podcast and to give these messages to more people out there.
Absolutely. Probably going to buy the banner for the backdrop.
Yes.
Like next week. So we'll have that probably like Wednesday. We're just trying to improve this podcast, trying to get it to the level where people are hearing. And so if you have all you local artists, all you people that are chiming into LA Natives, all my friends that have been hitting me up trying to get on to the LA Natives things, there's an open forum on Wednesday where we can interview you if you have a computer and a clear connection on the internet, and you can come on anytime on that day. It doesn't have to be a scheduled interview. Since we put out our calls to the community in terms of scheduling interviews, got bombarded with so many offers and so many people wanting to be on our podcast. So please kind of forgive me. I know I have a lot of artists out there that we have not even mentioned. I don't even want to mention names because we got really busy, but know that you're in our heart, and we're going to build the foundation around quality hip hop.
Yes.
And people that are from Los Angeles, and you know who you are. I don't have to shout you out yet. We're going to have fun. We're going to build this. And I'm happy to see that the locals are the local artists of Los Angeles are starting to listen to what we're doing here and stuff. So anything else? Any questions or any
That's
comments?
pretty much it.
Cool.
That's pretty much it. We had a great interview today. I can't wait till next week. We have Dreezus coming up next. And then the week after that, we have Snotty Nose Rez Kids. And then the week after that, we have MC Red Cloud.
Nice. Oh, man.
So we're definitely stacked to the limit right now. And then more on the way. Like Zero said, join us on Wednesdays. Open discussion. If you have a laptop, if you have some earphones, feel free to chime in. We'll send you the invite link. You could video chat with us live on our discussions on Wednesdays. And man, thank you for all the support. I really appreciate everyone, just listening to what we have to say, man. The fan feedback has been overwhelming, right? Zero, like some of the messages that we get, it's really cool.
It's almost like writing a hit song where, when you have someone that goes, I listen to you every Sunday and I look forward to listening to you every Sunday. It's kind of like writing a good song, and David did not disappoint this. I know a lot of people weren't familiar with it because he himself said that he wasn't a part of publicizing that he was a part of these things. But
yes,
now he gets a chance to, and we got the interview, right? LA Natives.
That was a great interview.
Yeah, LA Natives, hit another home run, man. And we're doing it for our people, to expose our people's art, and know that be patient with us, and we should be able to expose everybody that needs to be exposed in whatever capacity that we can. And we have a lot of things in the future, right, Armando?
Yes,
shows.
a lot. Shows, giveaways, workshops, outreach. Before we go, just make sure you guys share this content to someone that you know, someone that you feel needs this content, needs to listen to this content. Share the video on YouTube, hit the notification bell, like us on YouTube, comment on YouTube, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Twitch. Do whatever you guys need to do to get this message out there, man, because this is some really, really great content.
Absolutely. And so just announcing too that, I try to want to be relevant throughout the week so that we have some sort of continuity until leading up to Sunday. So I want to announce that on IG, I'll be going live every Monday and just kind of playing my favorite songs, putting a playlist together and playing it live, just kind of getting some comments, the extra people that maybe couldn't, get in on Sunday or Wednesday. We want to have an outlet for you to have a voice. People who become artists just get a bigger platform to share the message of their own community. And that community has a voice, and you're that voice. So please chime in on Wednesdays, be interactive, tell anyone, that any friend, any brother or sister that feels like, this message will resonate with them, and let them know that, LA Natives is here. LA Natives is here to provide quality art, quality garments, and a movement of healing.
LA Natives. Have a great weekend. Well, the weekend's over. Have a great week. And we'll see you guys this Wednesday or next Sunday.
Absolutely. Meshikatiawi, Ometeo, Tonansin, Tonatu, great grandfathers, and ancestors and elders. They all live within you. They are you. You are them. It's time for you to realize that and put all of that love into the community and every living thing around you, because that is the native way. The native way is to be connected, present, and aware. We'll see you next Sunday. LA Natives.